Alright, this problem says find the surface area, round to the nearest tenth if necessary. Use 3.14 for pi. So here we have a cone, and we need to find the surface area of it. So to find the surface area of a cone, we actually have a formula. So the surface area of a cone is equal to pi, which we're going to use 3.14 for pi, times the radius squared, remember r represents the radius, plus pi times the radius times L. And so this L value we need to figure out. If you look at this picture here of a cone, the radius is halfway across a circle, it shows the height, and they show us the L value. So the L value here is actually the hypotenuse on a right triangle that is formed between the height of the cone and the radius. So L is the hypotenuse of that right triangle. To find the length of L, we need to use the Pythagorean theorem. So before we do that, let's just go over what the radius is going to be. Remember, the radius is halfway across a circle, and through the center, halfway across. So here, 6.6, that's the diameter. If we take that 6.6 and divide it by 2, so cut it in half, we get that the radius is equal to 3.3 centimeters. Then we know that the height here is equal to 7.2 centimeters. We are going to use those two measurements along with the Pythagorean theorem, because we have a right triangle, to find the length of L. So to find the value of L. So Pythagorean theorem we talked about in class, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but here I replace the c with an L because that's the hypotenuse and that's what we're trying to find. So a and b are the legs of the right triangle. The legs are the two sides of the right triangle that meet to form the right angle. So 3.3 squared plus 7.2 squared equals this L value squared. Then the left-hand side of this equation here is just something that you're going to type into Desmos. So you're going to go on there and you're going to type in 3.3 squared plus 7.2 squared. When you do that, you get 62.73 is equal to L squared. Now, we know what L squared is, but we just want L by itself. So to undo squaring something, you take the square root. Squaring and taking the square root are inverse operations, so they undo each other. Remember, when you're solving an equation, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. So we have the square root of 62.73 equals the square root of L squared. Then you can actually type this in Desmos. Do the square root of 62.73, and you get that 7.9 is equal to L. We just have L left on the right-hand side, remember, because squaring and taking the square root are inverse operations. They undo each other. So now that we know that R is equal to 3.3 and L is equal to 7.9, we're just going to take those numbers and substitute them into our surface area formula. So surface area is equal to 3.14, remember that's how we're approximating pi, times the radius, which is 3.3 squared, plus 3.14 pi times the radius, which is 3.3, times this L value, which is 7.9. So then you're going to go on Desmos, and everything that I've highlighted here in green, you're just going to type in, all at one time. When you get your answer, we want to round it to the nearest tenth, so that's one number after the decimal spot, after the decimal point. So our surface area is 116.1 centimeters squared. Remember, the units here are squared because we're talking about area. When we were talking about volume, our units were cubed, but we're talking about area now, so area are square unit.